Hey folks, Logan here from the Google DeepMind team. Welcome back to a special edition of Release Notes. I'm here with Josh Woodward and Tulsee Doshi. We're sitting in I/O right now, day 2, and excited to talk about all the stuff that we just launched and shipped. And it's been awesome. You two killed it on the stage. It was wonderful to watch. The crowds were cheering. The people online were saying great things. So thanks for sitting down and chatting.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah.
I think takeaway from day 1 from me was very positive. Like, people were really excited. We launched a bunch of great products. I think I pinged someone last night and I said, like, this year's I/O feels like Google at its best. Like, really, like, and showing out. I think this is like the first I/O to me that felt like AI native and not like us like sort of taking the first step into the AI moment. So I'm curious to get both of your reactions to everything that happened yesterday.
I mean, yesterday was a blast. I think as I was walking around afterwards, someone referred to it as like a Google carnival. And I really do feel like the energy like felt that way. Like, it felt like there was a lot of excitement and energy coming from us, and then a lot of excitement and energy like being reflected back about what we were sharing. And that was really awesome. And I think for me, like, it really does feel like this I/O is so much of not just launching new products, which is awesome, but also like a momentum story. It actually really feels like we've hit our stride.
Yeah.
And like, speaking from a Gemini perspective, like, it really does feel like we're not just telling a story about Gemini as a model being awesome, which we are, but we're also telling a story about Gemini in our products and actually landing with real users in real ways, whether that's like from a developer perspective and the API and Jules, or whether it's from like AI mode perspective, or it's from like a glasses perspective. Like, we're telling the story about how Gemini is at a moment now where we can really bring it to users in the way they want to use it. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the theme. If there was a bumper sticker for yesterday, to me, it would be like from research to reality.
Yeah.
It's actually taking a lot of the research. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
I'd take you a shirt that says from research to reality. Just a Gemini logo.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look across the developer products, consumer products, we didn't even talk about any of the enterprise stuff that's happening. That was Cloud Next a month ago. I think it's a whole bunch of stuff around the company coming together. And I/O is always just a crazy time. As you're, trying to put stuff together at the, sometimes the last minute.
Mostly
Good morning.
But it's really great. So I think on our side, we had a bunch of stuff coming from Google Labs, the Gemini app. So exciting to get to share some of that, and look forward to everyone's feedback too.
Yeah, I actually want to start off with another question that I won't take credit for this. Somebody asked last night. I was doing a panel with Yoonhan and Bibo, who are on your team.
Yeah.
And the panel host asked what we expected I/O 2030 to look like. And it was a really interesting question, and they both gave great answers. So the stakes are high for both of you. But I'm curious what your take is of like what I/O 2030 will look like.
2030.
And maybe I'll give the answer that I gave first.
Yeah, start it up, yeah.
The comment I made was actually in line with what you said, Tulsee, which was like, I think historically Google has been a company that has had many, many different products, and like there hasn't been this like thread. I think the only thread that sort of tied them all together was like your Google account in some ways, or like Google infrastructure. And it feels more and more that like Gemini is this like one product thread that brings all of everything that we do at Google together, which is actually really cool. And I was thinking about this in the developer ecosystem. Like, we just haven't, like, different developer communities have historically been like very disconnected. Now, like, Gemini in Android Studio and Gemini in Chrome and Gemini for web developers and et cetera, is like bringing everyone together. And I think we'll see more and more and more of that being the narrative at I/O, of like that being the mechanism to bring Google together and our customers together. But I'm curious, other takes on I/O 2030.
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Sure.
All right, yeah.
I mean, I think it's actually interesting because when you say I/O 2030, I feel like there's like 3 things that come to mind. One is just like, I mean, the technology is going to be wild by the time we get to 2030, right? I mean, we're already seeing like just from 2024 to 2025, like what Gemini can do has been amazing. And so we're going to see this world where like so much of what Demis presented yesterday on this vision of like the universal virtual assistant and this idea of like Gemini as this like proactive part of your life, I think is going to be like actually realized materially. So I actually think the like way Gemini, the way we're talking about Google products and the way that you're expected to interact with technology and interact with the world is going to be different. And so I think that's going to be a big part of I/O. I think the second part of I/O, to your point, is going to be about I think we're really bringing these pieces together into a more unified experience, right? So it's not like I'm going over here and I'm going over here and I'm going over here and I'm getting 3 different things versus I actually like Gemini is working for me across my surfaces, across my devices, across like, and then the third I think is just I expect I/O will also look different in 2030.
Yeah.
The internet is going to look different in 2030, and the way we like consume and engage with content is going to look different.
You just send your agent to I/O, and then it consumes all the stuff.
Dun dun dun. No, but it's just going to look different. I think. I think what's also funny is like 2030 feels like
so far.
Yeah.
so far
my
away.
first reaction when you said 2030, I originally was
Maybe this
thinking
is
like,
2027. I don't know.
yeah, maybe we can get to Thursday first or something like that. I mean, it's interesting. We have this exercise in Google Labs sometimes we do where we think about like jump in this kind of like magical flying saucer that shoots you out into the future. You get out, you have a few minutes to look around, write down everything about the future, and then you come back. We've only done that exercise through 2028 right now, so I don't know the actual extra 2 years.
2030, who knows?
But it does feel like, I mean, one of the things even we're seeing a lot with some of the stuff we launched yesterday at I/O is this kind of blurring the lines of kind of what's becoming possible.
Yeah.
And sort of the lowering of the bar when it comes to like how much time it takes or how many skills or even the cost of things.
Or who can use
Or, and
things.
who,
Yeah.
and all that relates to who. So I think when you think about the future of software development or creativity or knowledge or any of these things, 4 or 5 years out, it's gonna be really interesting.
Really.
But I do think it's almost like the arc is towards democratizing a lot of this stuff. And that's probably when you look at products like Flow, like we launched yesterday, or any others, that sort of feels like that'll be a principle. And then, in terms of the show format and everything, who knows?
I mean, to that point, like, I mean, it was also like so cool to see how like present VO was in the show yesterday, right? Like in actually like
Telling the story.
like telling the story,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
actually creating I/O, and that's like, I mean, this is like year 1 of us doing that, right? And so
like
even
month
in-
1.
month 1 of us doing that, week 1 of us doing that. Like, I think if you just use that as like an example of how I/O, like the literal show is going to change. We actually used like Gemini and VO in so many places to like make the show today or yesterday. I think that's going to be like super wild. Yeah.
Yunhan had a great comment on this, who's on your team and is one of the post-training leads, and she said that her expectation for 2030 was that we hopefully will be able to announce like major scientific breakthroughs that were enabled by Gemini happening. And I thought that was such an interesting answer where like you could imagine, and back to this thread of like democratizing access, I think the cherry on top is like, it's a bunch of college students somewhere in the world who are like using Gemini out of the box and like discover some like new scientific principle, or like they cure some disease or something like that. I think that would be like such a crazy and wild story.
Well, I think that was one of my favorite parts of the show yesterday. At the very end, Sundar kind of pulled back and was talking about how AI, like today's research, will become the reality of 2028, 2029, 2030, et cetera. And I think that, you think about scientific breakthroughs, whether it's in medicine, the disaster relief stuff with FireSat or Wing delivering, medical supplies or water, Waymo, isomorphic labs. I think there's a whole bunch of stuff there that is just like, it's going to be really interesting to see how these things stack on each other.
It's really cool, I think, to think through also like where, I think oftentimes when we talk about AI, we often talk about like the sort of more consumer, tangible, like opening up the world, the way you can engage with AI on the day-to-day. But I think the point around scientific breakthrough and the examples you give also speak to like, what is the role we can have in the world and in the concerns we're seeing today, right? Whether that be around like climate change or whether that be around access or healthcare, like how do we take some of those principles and break them down? I think becomes really amazing.
Yeah, I think this is the other thread from yesterday was just like the breadth of Google stuff. And I think the science piece is like, it's awesome that we can, do VO and like have all this like really cool, fun technology, and then like also walk the walk and like do real hard science and help the world through that lens. But let's talk about some of the launches. And both of you are responsible and we're announcing a bunch of the stuff yesterday, and we can do whoever wants to go first. Josh, you're people want more Jules, people want more Flow, people want more VO, more Gemini apps. So I think there's a crazy amount of demand.
Well, there's a lot. First, it's just a kind of unbelievable team effort. across. So anyone that kind of sees people up there, you just know there's a massive amount
Army
kind of behind
yeah.
and working on it together. I mean, maybe we start VO3. That one was pretty fun to announce. So the big headline, you can not just animate things now and make, pictures move, they can talk. And they have sound effects and background sounds. And I just remember the first time I was watching these come across when we got the checkpoint, just blown away.
Yeah.
It's kind of the reaction we've seen in the first 24 hours is it's just really hard to imagine you can describe something in natural language and it just comes to life. And so that was the model breakthrough. It's state of the art. It's building on a state of the art VO2 model from December. It's a massive amount of creativity.
Amazing.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's really incredible at the just core research level. And then we basically, less than 100 days ago, we were like, we need to build a product that's worthy of this model. And so that product's Flow. It's a tool for AI filmmakers. We've co-created it intentionally with folks in the industry. So these are, big names you might recognize in sort of Hollywood, all the way down to emerging AI filmmakers who are making their first films using AI natively. So we've tried to get a whole range of opinions, and kind of in a typical sort of Google Labs and sort of Creative Lab and Google DeepMind way, we've kind of co-created. And so the product, the features, the back and forth has literally been tested with just this great set of creatives. And so when you see things like, oh, you can trim a clip, of course, any product can do that if you're editing video. But when you extend it, there's so much that went into that, even though it looks so simple on the screen, and so much input from folks that are making films of oh, if you could do it this way, it'd be amazing. And so we just tried to build that into the tool. So yeah, it launched yesterday right on stage. The TPUs immediately got very hot. So I think we've hopefully added more capacity to meet the demand. But yeah, we're really excited to see where that's gonna go. And our vision for that is it's really a tool to empower kind of creative storytellers. It's not a tool to replace, it's a tool to empower. And a lot of the stuff you saw yesterday at Google, that's kind of the theme. And that's, a visual way to do it, I guess.
I love that. And for folks who are, and I've seen I was watching a bunch of the videos this morning and being blown away by it.
Amazing.
Yeah, they are amazing. How do you actually get access right now?
Yeah. So there's it's available in 2 products right now. You can get it in the Gemini app or in this new product called Flow. Right now, because we're just rolling it out, we've put it in this new Google AI Ultra plan is what it's called. And this Ultra plan, you can just Google it, it'll come up. It's 50% off for the first 3 months here, like Tulsee was saying earlier before we got on the show. And it's going to give kind of access to all the best AI stuff from Google. So we've designed this Ultra plan to be kind of your VIP access to everything. So it's got access to VO3, it's got the highest rate limits across everything. YouTube Premium's in there, 30 terabytes of storage. We basically tried to create a plan that if you wanted all the best there, and that's where you can get it today. And over time, we'll start to bring it into the other tiers and make it more available.
I love that. That's the only way to access Flow. Flow is part of the Ultra bundle. It's not like a standalone product that you would pay per video or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. Over time, that's actually one of the top requests.
Yeah.
Is people are already can I just pay for credits and just pay per use?
So I saw a bunch of tweets that were Josh, please raise the rate limits. I'm this is the one thing I can't raise rate limits on. So I'm gonna start. I'll tag you.
Straight to the store.
Straight to Josh. Straight to Josh.
We've heard your request. And we're working on it. Yeah.
Josh is actually backstage.
No, well, we didn't expect the demand to be as swift as it was. Yeah. So there's a lot of demand. People are starting to hit some rate limits.
Yeah.
So we're on it. Yeah.
And to talk about this audio plus video innovation, is that tied to we're also telling the Gemini native audio story.
Yeah, you should talk about that.
Are these things as innovation level connected or just similar ideas or is there any carryover between the two?
I think there is similarity, although I do think the actual technical breakthroughs here are distinct.
Got it.
So in the context of VO, really what we're trying to do is bring audio and video together, right? And be able to generate these in a way that actually these two things speak together, right? And are unified. In the context of native audio, so what we're also bringing to Gemini is just the ability for Gemini to speak, right? And when we say native, what that really means is instead of Gemini generating text and then that text being converted to speech, Gemini just naturally generates the content that it creates in speech. And what that allows you to do is really focus on making the conversation feel more natural, right? So instead of it feeling like, I guess you would expect a model to speak in sort of a more monotone kind of notion, it has more emotiveness. It speaks with more tonality differences. You can like change the style, so you can ask it to speak with a higher volume or lower volume or more dramatically, or like a pirate, right? Like you can change the style of how the model speaks. And so when you actually get the outcome, it's much more, it feels much more conversational, right? We actually put native audio in Notebook LM, and that's been awesome to see kind of how much that's really been kind of a large part of even supporting ITN, right? So being able to support multiple languages in Notebook LM, because native audio actually allows you to go seamlessly between languages. You don't have to like set explicitly like now speak in English or like now speak in Hindi. You can actually like have that flexibility. Right.
Yeah, people were tagging me about that. I'm like, I've got nothing to do with Notebook LM. I was like, tag someone else.
Pretty interesting.
Awesome.
When you get these new capabilities like Tulsee's describing and that the team's inventing, it really changes how you think about building products.
Yeah.
So something like Notebook LM and the audio overviews, or even in the Gemini app now, kind of out of the box, 45, 55, 70 plus languages just work. Yeah. And it just kind of opens up access, and it doesn't just open up access, it reduces the latency, and it makes it way more interactive. So, I mean, one of my favorite things to do is like you fire up one of these podcasts and you just hit join and just call in. And you're talking to the host. You see this similar kind of thing in Gemini Live too, right? And I think these are new types of kind of ways to interact that are really built on these new capabilities. But I think we're just starting to work through what kind of product possibilities does it unlock?
What is it? Yeah, and
it's a lot.
Like one of the things that's kind of cool with native audio that we're still experimenting with, and you can try this in like AI Studio and in the API and like test it out, is this idea of like proactive audio, right? So the idea that the model can actually tell like when we're speaking to each other versus when we're speaking to the model, right?
Yeah.
And so it actually knows when to respond, when to interrupt, versus when to hang back. And like, that's awesome, right? And then to your point about like new product possibilities, when you can't do that, you have to design your product around all of these edge cases, right? Because you're like, well, how do I make sure that I have the right limitations in place? But if the model can actually be like intentional about how it responds, you can actually now start creating like much more engaging experiences that are actually part of your day-to-day life, which I think also becomes really cool.
Yeah.
100%. Josh, just Gemini app question related to all the audio stuff. The live API or the Gemini live mode in the Gemini app feels today like it's this like distinctly different Gemini app experience. It's like you go in and there's all this different visuals than the rest of the experience. How much do you think as sort of all of this, I assume some of this was just like an artifact of the technology being like somewhat distinct from the rest of the stuff, but as it all sort of merges into the main Gemini model, do you think we'll see more of those capabilities just like fused into everything? I think there was some other announcements. It's available to everyone now to try for free in the Gemini app today.
Yeah, that's right. And that's kind of part of our general strategy. We want to bring a lot of this great, cool stuff just available.
My father-in-law is such a hardcore Gemini Live user.
I
love that.
Yeah. No, I know. I was using it actually yesterday, just like working through something. I think, you're right. Right now, you kind of do go into this different mode. There's the like drop animation. It all changes. It feels like you're kind of in a different spot.
Which is kind of cool because it is kind of like this magical, different experience. So I don't think that's that.
So that was the original thought behind it. I think we're trying to figure out how do we bring some of these elements? Because what's interesting is you get people in that mode and the conversations are like 5 times longer on average than the text-based conversations because it is this more free-flowing, interactive experience. So I think we're interested in, can we take some of those principles and bring it to the rest of the app? Because you think about Gemini, we're trying to make it the most personal, proactive, and powerful assistant. And something around proactivity, I think, has really been missing so far in a lot of the AI products, even the ones we've built in Google Labs, right? So I think there's a big opportunity taking a lot of these principles like, hey, actually this AI assistant, and of course it'll respond to you if you talk to it, but it'll also bring you things and things that are really matter to you or really timely. And so I think there's probably seeds in the Gemini Live experience that can spread in that way.
It is kind of interesting though, because I do feel like, I mean, I'm curious, like it feels like you're building, like Gemini Live does have currently just a different mental model behind it, which maybe isn't necessarily a bad thing around this idea of like conversational, right? Like I can go on a car ride and like have a conversation and have that be but I guess to your point, maybe it's about how do you bring the elements of like, I can actually take an action for you, and what does that look like, and merge these things closer together.
I mean, one thing we're already seeing a lot of people do with it is, and they even refer to it this way, they go live. And it's like they want to bring Gemini into whatever they're doing. This is why the camera and the screen sharing is such a big announcement yesterday, because when you go live with Gemini, it's like, all right, here's my camera. Now, help me out, Gemini, fix this bike or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's like interesting. It's kind of becoming a verb, and we didn't even plan for that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to follow user behavior in that way, because there's something to that, like,
that
okay,
model.
it's like helping me in this moment.
This proactivity piece, I think, is also, it's available on iOS and Android. I think it's also going to be super powerful on desktop. So this is my obligatory 90th ping that I get pinged
Desktop
every
app.
day. People want a desktop app. Gemini desktop app, they want it. They're begging for it.
Yeah.
Can we get a Gemini?
Can you commit right here
on camera?
Like this is the approach.
This is the approach.
I didn't know this was a trap. There's a bunch of feature requests here. Okay, so here's where we're going with the desktop app. So what we also announced yesterday is Gemini's coming to Chrome.
Nice.
That'll be a step one. Cool. So that'll work on your desktop. When you click the sparkle icon, it'll actually give you a floating sort of Gemini you can move around your screen.
Awesome.
So that starts to give you, if you're a Chrome user, you're going to be able hopefully to love that. And we'll add more to that over time.
What's the limitation of that? I haven't played around with it yet, but like what's the general, can I do everything that I can do in the Gemini app? Or
yeah, so where it starts right now, it's got a lot of it actually out of the box. So you can basically bring Gemini in. The cool part is we take the context of the page you're on, and it's automatically just in the context window.
Sick.
So that helps.
Yeah.
Any kind of Q&A with a long site or anything just works. We also built in Gemini Live there. So you can talk to it just like you want. And then of course you can drag it around. So we didn't want to just anchor it like fixed in a certain spot on the screen, because I don't know, people like you have multiple screens and things. You got to move it around.
I only have one extra screen. I don't have that good of a setup.
I think that's where it starts. Over time, I think we want to add a lot more. So the stuff we were showing yesterday around agent mode, some of the Project Mariner capabilities, wouldn't it be cool if you could just hit that thing, or there is a keyboard shortcut too. You can just invoke it, send off a task, and it just does stuff. Yeah. So that's where we're going. We've heard the requests loud and clear about the dedicated desktop app, especially on Mac. So there is a team very excited about that. We'll have more to share when it's ready.
Another thread from yesterday was just around all of the new Gemini models. So we had DeepThink with Gemini 2.5 Pro. We had all the excitement with Mariner, which is part of the main Gemini model. We had Gemini Diffusion. Tulsee, you announced a bunch of this stuff. I think I was blown away. If folks haven't tried the Gemini Diffusion bit yet, it's crazy. Give us the...
Yeah, you should definitely sign up on the waitlist to try it if you haven't, because I don't know if you've had a chance to try it. It's awesome. So I think what's actually really cool about the Gemini model story we announced yesterday is it ranges the gamut from like us trying to make our models more performant, right, from like a quality standpoint. So DeepThink is really about pushing the frontier of research from a reasoning perspective, right? And trying to say, okay, if we actually enable these models to reason more, and we allow them to actually look at multiple hypotheses and then identify an answer, can we actually like seriously push coding performance, math performance, reasoning performance, multimodal performance? And the answer is yes. And we actually like can see that in 2.5 Pro DeepThink. Like it's state of the art on the benchmarks. It's also just like super cool to use. And so for us on the DeepThink side, now we're like, wow, this is a really a frontier model. It has these capabilities. We need to start thinking through, okay, what is the safety story? How do we make sure we're intentional about how individuals use this model and then roll it out? So we're in that stage. So that's kind of one extreme, which is how do we push the research on the reasoning side? Diffusion is like the other extreme, which is how do we push the research on speed and on efficiency and on new ways of engaging with the model. So what's cool about Diffusion is like the approach we've taken to Gemini so far, it generates left to right. And so it generates like sequentially, if you will, whereas Diffusion doesn't actually have that limitation. It actually like refines kind of step by step through that process. And so if you saw the video we showed at I.O., you can actually see it real time modifying the answer.
You can barely see it because it's so fast.
If you blinked, you missed it, which is the line from I.O. But like, I think if you saw the slowed down version, you could see it actually like going through that process, and it's so fast. which is, so like, I think that's kind of shows where we're hoping for Gemini to go. We're really hoping to like, push on latency and efficiency and new types of ways of like editing and engaging. And we're trying to push on 2.5 Pro and its reasoning capabilities and its performance. And then of course, there's our mainstays, 2.5 Pro and 2.5 Flash. And what was also really cool yesterday is 2.5 Flash got an update and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Like its performance has gotten so much better in just even the last month. And a lot of it is through like just developer feedback and trying to figure out where we're seeing developers use these models, where we want to continue to push them. It's much, much better at coding, for example. Its multimodal performance is getting better. Like it's just an awesome model. And then 2.5 Pro, we actually pre-released it 2 weeks ago. So we released the I/O edition, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Just so we could get folks starting to build on it. And that's been awesome because like the web app generation is wild, what we're seeing people do. Yeah. And so that's also been really cool.
And GA soon too.
And GA soon.
Which is super important. People are, I think a lot of the feedback is, give us a model that we can use for the next
Yeah.
It's like, model we want to
so
use
one
it.
thing I will say is definitely heard that feedback. I
Yeah.
think one thing we like really want to make sure we do is give developers a stable model and a model that is going to be around for a year, that you can build kind of stable production systems on. So for both 2.5 Flash and Pro, Flash we pre-announced at I/O is coming early June. Pro will come like very, very soon after. And I think we really want to make sure that we kind of have both ways for developers to have kind of stable production models that they can just keep building on, but also ways to keep shipping models like in ways that we can get developer feedback on.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're also working with the Gemini app and trying to make sure that we kind of have ways to keep testing these models and keep getting feedback and making sure that we're accounting for all of the pieces. What's also been awesome about releasing the Pro model 2 weeks ago is we've gotten a lot of feedback about what people loved in the initial model and what people are loving in the new model and where they're also seeing differences.
Yeah.
And that's also super helpful because our benchmarks capture some of those changes, but what people really resonate with is actually just super helpful feedback. And then we can build that into like how we train and iterate on the model, which is great.
With thinking budgets too on Pro, which was the other like number one feature request. So people wanted to be able to control how much, especially because it's a little bit more expensive than Flash. So they want to be able to control cost essentially and time and all that stuff.
Yeah, and like thinking budgets basically allow you to go from turning it off, so like zero thinking, to scaling up, right? To like, you know, getting to that like 16K budget, for example. And so you can actually basically go from how much thinking do you want the model to do? And then that's essentially a proxy for cost and latency is our hope.
And summaries too, which was the other thing. So I think
thank you for reminding me of the announcements. I'm like, what?
I was
did we
thinking
say? Oh my God.
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning. I was like, there was so many things that were just like
too many things. I can't keep track.
Footnotes because there was a million other things happening.
Well, I think the thing to me that's like interesting to take away from all this is you laid it out perfect. There's all kinds of advances happening. And if you're a developer, if you're running a company, you're a CEO, now is the time, I think, to go in on Gemini.
Yeah.
Like you can see the pace of progress. It's unbelievable. I think it's best in the world. And whether it's literally the GA models like 2.5 Pro or 2.5 Flash, they'll be coming in the next few weeks, or it's the stuff like Diffusion or the DeepThink mode, you think of the range of that Pareto frontier, and we're literally pushing it out. There's one company pushing it out right now. And so I think last I.O. there were a lot of questions. All right, Gemini was new. What is this Gemini API as a developer? Should I trust it? Is it going to meet my needs? And I mean, I think you saw even Sundar announce like the growth on Cursor, which has got some of the most sophisticated developers pushing the limits of all these models. What model are they choosing? Choosing Gemini. Yeah. So I think there's like all these proof points that I think a lot of people, I mean, you talk to people every day on X about it. I think they're seeing this. And I think this is the time because we're not slowing down in terms of the advancements and the change. And so I think this I.O. brought it together.
It's actually been awesome too, because to your point about Cursor and developers really using Gemini where they want to build.
Yep.
I think from that, we're actually just getting really very, very real feedback, right? So like, for example, one of the changes we made between the first version of 2.5 Pro and the second version was around tool calling. Because we were getting a lot of feedback from Cursor and Cursor users that tool calls weren't working, right? And we still have, improvements to make there, and we're still continuing to iterate with the IDEs on how we work on these efforts. But like that real feedback allows us just to make a more usable, rich, fully functional product, right? And then that I think is amazing because there's a whole team behind the scenes who is trying to work on all of these pieces,
obsessed.
right? They're they're so obsessed. And like what I think is awesome is like, it's a full effort from like model changes, right? So like actually training the model and trying to make sure that like the model itself is super capable. It's also serving changes, right? So making sure that like the full stack works to support these models in a way that is rich. It's like the TPU is running hot, so making sure like capacity is working in the way that we want it to work. Like it's a full set of team efforts, and it's actually been really cool to see all of those, all of our researchers also like really leaning into the feedback and saying like, oh wait, here's what we're seeing from developers. What does that mean? How do we pull that in? Has been like really awesome.
Yeah, and I think the only other point that I'll add is it's also been a beautiful story of us meeting developers where they are. Like I think it's, you know, there's a world where Google makes our best coding models for developers and we put them in only Google products or something like that. And I think that it's the wrong approach. And I think the approach we're taking is like, we know people are in Cursor, we know they're in Klein, we know they're in the, you know, all the Bolt and Lovable and all the other developer products that are out there. And let's bring the models to those developers so that they get to feel this.
They get to use it where they want to build, right?
Where
like
they want to build.
You should use Gemini where you want to build.
Yep.
And then we should make Gemini work for those environments,
for all those,
right? And like, I think, yeah, it's been amazing. And like as a PM, I feel like the best part of the product development process is when you're really starting to get real user feedback, right?
It makes it easy.
It makes it easy, right?
Life is easy when people tell you what doesn't work and what they want to be better.
Not gonna lie, what I love about developers as users is like, they're very vocal.
Yes.
Right? Like they're telling us what they want.
Yeah.
Both like the really good stuff about Gemini and what they're loving, and also like when it's not working, which is awesome because we can actually do something about it.
External developer perception, super excited about all the stuff that we landed. But also I think part of that story is like new products coming for developers. And I think Jules is one of those, Stitch is one of those. We landed Code Generation AI Studio, which
we had a cool demo at
your demo was awesome.
It worked.
It was honestly incredible. I think I'm always blown away when like it actually comes together in like a real like shiny, like well done demo. So you crushed it. Josh, do you want to talk us through Jules? And I think we announced this as like sort of a low-key research preview back in December, but
that's right.
Finally have it available to everyone.
Yeah, so Jules is interesting. You know, it's one that started as kind of a lot of these Google DeepMind, Google Labs things go. We were a small group of us were like, wouldn't it be cool if you could build kind of an asynchronous coding agent? And this was back in, I don't know, Halloween or something, like October, November, something a long time ago. And so we built the first version in December. The idea behind Jules is we really want to give you a way you can just assign tasks to this coding agent that you don't want to do. So it frees you up time to do things you actually want to do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what we announced yesterday is the biggest update yet. It's got 2.5 Pro Gemini right at the heart of it, best coding model. And it just gets to work for you. So it can fix bugs, it can do tests, it can do some documentation stuff. The other thing that's interesting is we've created other ways. We're thinking of it more as a developer kind of hub you can go to. And there's different approaches. You know, some people want to build things in the command line or other places. We're kind of thinking it'd be interesting if you just had a spot. It's kind of like your command center, where you're kind of watching all this stuff happen. Exactly. And it kind of allows you to think about it from a different angle. So the way we use it on the team is you link your GitHub repo. Jules can start going in, you can assign it different tasks, comes back to you with PRs. You can approve, reject, edit, whatever. But it also does things like this feature called Codecast, which became very popular yesterday. We had to manage the compute, where it lets you basically get a summary, like a podcast summary of how your code base is changing. And the way our team uses it is on the drive into work, they'll just listen. And overnight, you know, CLs are landing and you have a sense of like what's happening in your code base. And people, we thought it was a little bit of like an experimental thing. They love it because it orients you to what's changing in your code. So that when you get to work, you don't have to spend a bunch of time figuring out what's going on. You've got like a rough sense and then you can just go in and do what you want. So we do it that way. We run bug bashes on the labs team. You know, you may generate a backlog of like 38 issues, and then Jules just starts cranking on some of them. It's actually now starting to create features. It's not just fixing bugs. So I think this whole area is just super exciting. And now that we have a Gemini 2.5 model, that excels at coding and reasoning and can plan and do multi-step actions. I mean, we're really just at the beginning. So it's an open beta. If you go to jules.google, you can try it out. You get 5 tasks per day today. We'll be upping the limit. We're just trying to manage demand right now. But it's a new type of product. And we think of the future of software development. This is one where we think as a professional developer, hopefully it'll make not only your job way more efficient, but also just more enjoyable, because you'll get to spend your time on the things you want to do. And hopefully some of these other things you can kind of hand off.
And I think one thing that's kind of cool about like how I feel like we're thinking about code-related products and also how we're thinking about code-related improvements in Gemini is like, again, to this point about like a range, you have Jules, which I think is really built for professional software engineers and like really built for developers who, like you said, want to get rid of a set of tasks or want to actually like have that collaborative setup. You then have like Canvas and Gemini app, which is really built for like vibe coding, right? You have CodeGen and AI Studio, which is maybe like one step farther than that because it really is meant to help you easily deploy things into production. And so, and you know, we can talk about Stitch, but like, I think there's like kind of this range of like, now that we have an amazing coding model, like what are the different types of developer use cases we want to make that model better for? But also what are the different types of product surfaces that need to exist to support those types of workflows?
So, and I think this is the key point, because a project like Stitch doesn't exist without this kind of first principles thinking. So Stitch, the idea behind it is, let's not just try to bolt in AI into some workflow. What if you just reimagine a workflow? And so Stitch starts actually not with code, but with design. And it says, what if you could describe an interface you want? And it just makes it. And it doesn't just make a screenshot of it, it actually makes like the design file with the markup. And when you've got that, you're now starting at a different kind of origin point. And that we think will create all kinds of new possibilities really for people maybe who never thought of themselves as a developer, but they know kind of roughly the screen they want. And they know that like when you click on that button, it should do that, or like I want it in dark mode, or do you know what I mean? So it starts to really kind of democratize and open up access. So I think your point about, again, that spectrum, you know, Jules is kind of on one side and Stitch is on the other side, and that's intentional. We're trying to explore kind of the frontiers of what's possible.
I mean, it like really like one of the things I talked to my team about is like we, you know, the history of product management is you talk about PRDs. Like what is a PRD or like how you describe your ideas is like now fundamentally changing.
Totally different.
You build the product. So like that's the cool thing.
You can actually like explore it and prototype it and like build real things that you can feel, that others can feel, and actually like have much more of a collaboration in that way. That I think totally changes how you can design products, whether you're an engineer or not.
This is the moment. My like normal workflow historically had been I would take screenshots of AI Studio and I would go to another product that you know did CodeGen and all that stuff. And the sort of aha moment for native code editing and code generation AI Studio was I took the screenshot of AI Studio, I went into AI Studio and I said recreate this, and then I was vibe coding and iterating on like a bunch of new potential features, and like it worked incredibly well. And I was like, this is just such a
it just changes the way you can express your ideas, iterate
100%.
on them.
I think the like PRD is like such a, or just like any document of like translating your idea in your head to like someone else's fingers creating something is just like so lossy in many ways, and like it's beautiful to be able to like keep trying to express the thing that you have in your head and be the person in the driver's seat. So I think this goes back to the thread of just like raising the bar for people to be able to create across all these domains, design, code, et cetera, et cetera. This was awesome. I think this is one of my favorite conversations. It's great to do it like in person at I/O. Like I can still feel the energy. In-person episodes only. I know. I'm sorry. Well, I have to travel and we'll have to do all this in person. For folks who are listening, all the stuff we talked about in the description. So check it out. You can link out to all the products, all the wonderful launches from the teams. So yeah, this was awesome. We have a special treat for both of you. As a thank you for all of your hard work and all the hard work of the team, and sort of a semblance of the reality of the moment, which is there's so much demand for stuff, and the thing behind to surface all of the demand is as you'll see in a second.
Awesome.
Wait, that's hilarious.
TPU V4 edition.
V4. We had to take these. Good. The team worked super hard behind the scenes to source TPUs from around the world to bring them, and we were giving them to some of the builders that we were hosting yesterday, and to you two as a special gift. And thanks for all the hard work. So
thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Awesome.
And yeah, everyone keep building. Yeah, it's so inspiring to see what you're doing.
Keep giving us feedback too.
Yeah.
I don't actually know where the right camera is, but wherever it is, keep giving us feedback.
we might need to take these TPUs and put them back in
I
circulation.
was going to say,
so
we keep going.
thank you both.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.